So I just finished watching the latest Forged in Eternum for the community Q&A, and I went and rewatched it a second time just to really listen to the answers the developers are giving. And I feel like in one specific area, they are incredibly wrong with their approach and how it's truly impacting the community. And thus I wanted to kind of give you guys, my thoughts, especially about how they could improve, why I think that is really what needs to happen. And in the long run, also summarize some of the other answers that they gave in the latest Q&A and give you my thoughts on those as well. I'm going to do something a little bit different in the at the end of this video. I've been doing this over on Ginger Prime with a focus in on kind of a community question discussion topic towards the end of the video. We're going to be discussing a little bit about PAX Days Alpha. If you want to hang out for that, you're welcome to. Otherwise, you'll know a clear distinction point of when to jump from the video. But anyway, hello everyone and welcome to another New World video. My name is Brian, if you happen to be new here to the channel, and I want to focus on the key answers that they gave, but more than anything else on where they are wrong and hopefully what we can see for the future. I do have a lot of hope. I do enjoy New World quite a bit, but I know I also have been really consumed by No Rest for the Wicked as a game. And if you guys have not seen that game, you got to go check out Ginger Prime for that coverage there. The devs are just crushing it, and honestly, it's a real treat. But there's some parallels, especially as it relates to the PAX Day discussion, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But they open up with that they are going to do less Forged in Eternums, especially when it comes to community Q&A, because frustrations are continuing to grow, where the answer is wait till June, wait till June. We've seen them tease swimming. That seems to be coming as a part of it. And they talked about how do they rebuild trust with the players, because that was a question that was asked. It's all going to be about actions. It's all going to be about what they do, not what they say. And I think that's why June, I think, is important, not just to be a communication as to what comes next for the game, but it needs to drop some serious content. But content is where they're struggling, and they're doing that because of design. Now, this is where they were wrong, and it's all relation to FOMO. That's that fear of missing out. And it's not that FOMO doesn't exist naturally in life. We're talking about artificial FOMO, an unnecessary sense of urge to finish or participate or do something. This relates clearly to their seasonal story and also their battle pass. These two things could be an easy win if they let you keep the seasonal story content, and that content retained in the game rather than just gets yeeted out and out of nowhere. Plus the work and the development effort behind that, it makes sense. In fact, they even went to say the cost and the development time of that, they're going to be focusing more on that kind of expansion, and persistent story, which all of it should be persistent in the first place. I think there is room for a seasonal kind of story, something that takes part over, the course of several updates that kind of play out, but that should remain in the game. And thus you could actually, kind of bookend it, where you could say the season, the story, the Silver Crows storyline, here, it runs here, and then if we want to do another seasonal storyline, we can do so, and it runs here, but they retain in the game. And so you can, as a player, because they stated this, and this is obviously, I think, a good reason why they did what they did, is they don't want it to where a new player comes in and feels like they got 1,000 hours of story just to be able to participate in the other parts of the game that they have. And it can be an overwhelming amount of content. And for a game that, especially right now, where players who didn't get to participate in chapter 1 or chapter 2 of that storyline, this has been a good opportunity for that to exist in this game and them to participate and play it out and learn the story, right? So they say they're going to also scale that back, and that just kind of says, they don't have plans to change how they keep that in the game, and that's why they're wrong. Like they really should go and invest in that. If you buy a battle pass, or as the season content gets updated, it's there forever, so that investment in time doesn't go away. You could even, if you wanted to, tie it to the battle pass, and you could purchase it, a previous battle pass, and have that season. Like we see other games doing this, and it works so well, and it makes the experience so much enjoyable, because artificial FOMO, I believe, is like sugar in your diet. Like it has a short-term benefit and a long-term disadvantage, and that's exactly what this content is. It's a short-term benefit, long-term disadvantage, because they could have been using those resources on making content that does exist in the game. But they did say they're going to be focusing on more repeatable content. That's exactly, I think, a good way to go about it. That's going to be what keeps people coming back to the game time and time again. But we still got a long way to go, and I'd love to see the developers pivot off of this FOMO and onto something more sustainable and something that grows over time, and thus makes just the game better overall, so that a new player coming in or a player coming back after a year, because people are known to take long breaks from the game, would have 4 seasons worth of content that they could enjoy. And so when they're not, rather than taking a break, they could be like, oh, I don't want to take a break, I'd like to be able to play and enjoy this game. That would be an option, and I think that's something where that feedback needs to be continually communicated to the developers, because I don't think it works. I just also think it leads to faster levels of burnout. I think essentially like that sugar high happens, and then eventually you have to keep chasing it higher, higher, and higher, and eventually you just kind of erupt. And we see that happen with a lot of games that have that artificial FOMO. And Destiny 2, I think, is one of the greatest offenders of that. And so if you like the FOMO in Destiny 2, you're probably thinking like, this guy's crazy. But if you have ever experienced that, it's kind of the same here, and I'd love to see the developers make a shift. But they also then go, I'm going to look over my notes, talking about war, PvP, matchmaking, kind of adding in more of that. Sounded like I got the impression they were talking about skill-based matchmaking, and for that they need a bigger player base. Like if they go and make it take, longer to find matches, to find the right matches, you're going to end up finding, that's going to be a self-fulfilling dooming prophecy. To have skill-based matchmaking and those kind of ranking systems, which I think the game would be beneficial from, it needs to have the player base that's connected into that. And so it is almost a weird chicken and egg. You need this to bring in the players, but you also need the players to really have a good system that that you trust. And that's going to be a time will tell kind of thing. They also go into wars and the kind of the issues about trying to get more people involved in that. And Scott knows the answer, and it's Mock Wars. He gave that answer over a year ago, maybe more now, and Mock Wars would be a really great way of solving that gap, that problem. And I'm all for it, because the Mock Wars would give new players who never tried war the experience, and we can learn how to do wars, so that when wars happen, in the game world, you're less intimidated. You're not coming in feeling like you're going to let the team down, which I don't know if you guys ever experienced that, but plenty of players do have that level of, like, it's not actually that they're against multiplayer stuff. They just don't want to be the weak link. And the only real way to get better at war is to play the mode. So it ends up being kind of something that I'd love to see the developers address as well. They also kind of talked about they're still trying to figure out territories in terms of, like, there's 2 factions within the team. Should they limit the amount of territories somebody should own? Should they just keep it the way it is? But they do feel like a change is needed with that system. And I think that's going to be something where I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think should be done there? I think that wars and territory should be a function of PvE and PvP. I think if they brought in the Final Fantasy XI model of conquest, where you do PvP actions, you get points for your faction. PvP actions, I think, would give you more points for your faction, and those points then get totaled up, and that's when war happens. That's something I'd love to see more of, that asynchronous, passive kind of multiplayer that plays into. If you want to just go gather, like you're helping the war effort, for example, not like in a massive significant way, but it adds up. It adds up over time, and you could see what you contributed each and every week to the effort. And that would be my thought on how to kind of manage it. I've shared that idea in the past, but we'll have to see. Now let's shift into our community question and answer section for the video. Oh, sorry. They also talked about gathering artifacts. They saw the question, kicked off a discussion, no immediate plans. Maybe that's something we see in the future. Anyway, community question. From Faded says, PAX Day is trash all day long. No game should be this bad. And I love survival games like discovering recipes. And I don't mind having to wait for stuff. But mobs are overtuned. Combat is terrible. Material like ore takes forever to get to. Then you have to spend an hour and 20 minutes making it. No thanks. I don't need a second job. This is something that's going to be interesting to see, because I think, and I want PAX Day to be successful, because I want that sandbox MMO experience that's really truly player driven to have an option. But what we've seen time and time again, theme park design takes the day, because it gives players, direction. It tells them kind of what to do. They understand what's being asked and what's being offered. Sandbox is driven around the players, and I like that style. That's where I came into MMOs, and I want to see more of that. So my experience with PAX Day is, yeah, I think we could dismiss their feedback as it's just an alpha, right? But it's beyond that. Like, there are things that they definitely need to improve, and I really enjoyed my time, and I'm enjoying my time. I'm looking forward to when early access launches, and I think that's going to be a huge help to the developers, because with that, that when early access eventually does kick off, we're going to be looking at kind of a more completed vision. But that doesn't mean that feedback and things can't change and will change. And I think that's going to be the relationship between the players who really want this before it goes to the mainstream, who will come in and judge it, right? We've seen that hype come in with the new MMO, only to then curse the MMO because it can't maintain that insane level of hype. That's just not necessary. The second job thing is interesting, and that's going to be something that's going to be find personally challenging for me as a player, because I find this very comfortable. I'm not trying to go in and be the best as fast as I can, because that's just not how my life is right now, nor do I think it will ever become that in the short term. Maybe when the kids are grown, I'll have more time to really truly invest and try to be top of the leaderboards, or first in whatever. But yeah, like, I don't think I'm looking for another job, but I am looking for a way that I can kind of relax and participate in the overall bigger picture, even if it ends up being a small percentage. I love that kind of gameplay loop. It feels it's kind of my cozy kind of game approach, where it's like I'm just kind of farming and killing, and then supplying the market with materials, to which that I can take that money, because it is sandbox, and buy my gear that maybe I don't have the skill to craft, and then I can go do these other things. And I like that aspect, because I think we see a lot of discussion around difficulty of games, which I think really, when I think of it as a developer, it's not about difficulty. It's about the time it takes to actually get that done. And so I look at things that, like, yeah, I don't mind. Is it difficult to collect a million, different things of string? Probably not. Is it time consuming? Yeah. Do you want to go do that? Maybe not, but maybe somebody does. And then you end up creating a relationship that isn't like one single player god killing machine. It's more that we're actually all in on this together. And I think that builds stronger communities. That's why I think Sandbox does solve a lot of the problems that people complain about Theme Park, because Theme Park is all about releasing the content quickly and, getting people into that loop and over again. But time will tell. Anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts. If you got any questions or comments you want to discuss, sound off in the comments as well. We'll be featuring those in future videos. Thank you so much for being here. If you feel like the video earns it, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and hopefully I will see you guys in the next video. Until then, take care.